Hello, Classroom Tech majors, and welcome to the screencast for the final Accumulating Masters project. As you can see, we're starting out on the home screen for the Canvas site. It's going to look a little different than what you're going to see just because we're still in publishing mode. So if you scroll down on the home page, you're going to see all the course modules, and we're going to scroll down to the final Accumulating Masters project module, and then we're going to click on Introduction. So the intro here is we're going to find the screencast. Obviously, it's not up yet since I'm still recording it. But what you're going to see is the module here is going just to guide you through the different steps in the process to doing your final master's project. Now, there's many different parts that go into this project, so we really want you guys to pay attention to the screencast and to the PowerPoints just so you can make sure that you know everything that you need to know about your master's project, because it becomes one of the keystones for your master's degree. So we're going to click the next button. So the next page has the master's thesis PowerPoint that we created to help guide you all through the process of making and planning your master's project. So the nice thing about Canvas is you can choose to view it on Canvas or just download it by clicking the link here. I'm going to go ahead and download it. Okay, so I've downloaded and made our screen bigger so you guys can read and follow along. Okay, so the master's project, obviously the key component to your master's degree, and it should demonstrate your accomplishments as a technology facilitator and leader, and should also go along with the ISTE NETS-C standards. There are two components to your master's project, your project files and your research paper. Now, remember that the focus of your project should reflect on your own personal goals and be supported through relevant research, demonstrate impact on student learning. So these are just some ideas that for the master's project files. Now remember, this is only one of the two parts for your master's project in total. Okay, so there's just different possibilities listed here. So you can do differentiated instruction activities. For students, you can design a computer club or a tech club for after school. Write a large grant to work with and try to get it and then use it throughout your school. Create podcasts, over 48 episodes, please, for about a year's worth of instructional support. You can also develop a professional development tech workshops for your school and deliver them. And you need to make sure that they worked and that the teachers learned something from them. Or create seminars of online lessons and units to be used in a particular K-12 need. So things to remember when you're thinking about your project files. So each project has to be tied to student learning. We cannot stress this enough, okay? Depending on your project, you may create all the materials by yourself, or you can define content that's already made and then use it yourself. So again, you don't have to make everything yourself if you don't want to. So one example is to create a resource site for teachers in your district. This is a great example because you're making the site yourself, but all of the resources are probably going to be something that you found somewhere else or that you're borrowing from someone. Okay, and in either case, you need to create a substantive set of materials. Okay, we're not talking one or two things. You need to be a year's worth or something really useful for a group of teachers. Okay, so here are two examples of master's projects that students have done in the past, and there's links here. Okay, so the first example is podcast. Remember, we said you need to make at least 48. This teacher made 49, okay, for his 8th grade social studies class. Each podcast covers an important topic that was discussed in class. And the 49 podcasts cover an entire year. Again, it needs to be a substantive amount, starting with the first migration to America until the last podcast is about the Reconstruction after the Civil War. Okay, and so again, each podcast was designed to aid the student in learning and better understanding materials. So we're going to go ahead and click on the link here real quick, and I'll show you around the site a little bit. Okay, so we're on the site, and as you can see, this teacher used Podbean as their hosting site for all their podcasts. So you not only want to make your podcasts and post them to iTunes, but you want to keep all your podcasts in a place that all your students can easily find them. So here we have just all of his podcasts. We're starting from the first migration, and then we can view all his other links to different ones. We have new Eden colonies, middle colonies. So, and honestly, his site is real simple. It just lists the title, and then it gives the listen now link for the podcast. So that's just one example of doing different kinds of podcasts. There are different hosting sites, but Podbean's a good one to work with. Okay, so our second example is screencasts. Now, that's what I'm doing right now with you all. Okay, so during the 2011-2012 school year, in order to make sure that students who were absent had the same opportunity to hear the information as it was presented in class, the teacher created a series of 66 screencasts. So they were created and presented, and so that if a student was gone, they could still get the same info. Again, we can click on the link here to view this teacher's screencasts. So again, all the project files are hosted on a site. In this case, all her screencasts are on her wiki page, and then there's a link, and then students will just click the link, and it takes them to that particular screencast. She has them in order of unit and subject, so again, it's very simple, very easy for students to find exactly what they're looking for. Okay, so the research paper. This is a paper that goes along with all of your project files, and it's something that should reflect on and look at whether or not your projects worked with student or teacher learning. So we're going to go back to the first example of the podcast. So the teacher who did those 49 podcasts on Podbean that I looked at wanted to make sure that the podcasting was affecting student learning. So a focus was placed on answering 2 research questions. Again, this is a research paper, so you want to have some kind of thesis, something that you're testing. So the first question was, did students who use podcasts perform significantly better on assessments than students who did not? And the second question was, did students who use podcasts feel more confident than a student who did not use a podcast? So this is just the teacher's method. So 108th graders, students divided into 2 groups, so those who did use the podcast and those who did not. And then the teacher found that those who did use the podcast actually scored higher and had more confidence on assessments than the other groups. The other example of a research paper here is the teacher wanted to investigate the effectiveness of the professional development on the use of classroom technology. So the teacher did a pre-survey and a post-survey just to see if it led to an increase in use of technology in the classroom. So the data found that there was a significant relationship between the method of professional development and the technology used in the classroom. And it also said that this person's new method of professional development led to more effective use in the classroom. So these were just 2 examples of good research papers. Okay, so we hope that these examples will give you some ideas on what we like to do. Okay, remember, it needs to be focused around student learning, and the data collection should reflect your project files. If you want to discuss working on your project now, please email Dr. Tony Sondergeld, and she will work with you on your data collection. So now we have the project timeline. So if you're starting to get overwhelmed, don't worry, all of your classes guide you through this master's project. So your initial ideals are going to be in your first classes. And then these are going to be taken probably about the first semester. Okay, and talk to your instructors, your classmates, look at literature, try to find what you want to do. Okay. Your project prospectus. So in EDTL 6320, you'll look at your direction, and you want to write a proposal outline and submit it to your course instructor. Again, Tony Sondergeld is going to be your contact for this. Okay, and you're going to complete your project in 6330, 6340, or 6350. Okay, and you want to make most of your project here. So these are your project files, PD sessions, whatever you want to make, because you want to do this before you submit to HSRB. Okay, so your HSRB submission, again, it's going to be in one of these classes. Okay, and before you take these classes, you need to complete the HSRB training online before you go to these classes. This is very important because you can't do HSRB without the training. And then your final course is going to be EDTL 6380, and this is where you're going to actually put your paper together and then make your portfolio, which will be reviewed by a classroom technology panel. So if you're done with the module, if you've gone through stuff and looked at the screencast and the PowerPoint, make sure that you take the short quiz at the end of this. Remember, all the answers to the quiz can be found on the screencast or on the PowerPoint. Now, before you do that, though, it'll probably be a good idea to make sure that you go back to the main module and look at all the other information that we've given you. Throughout the rest of the module, you're going to find more detailed information about everything that we just went over on the PowerPoint, such as the view of the master's project, the prospectus class. Okay, remember that's your short proposal. Just again, a list of more ideas, information for HSRB, language that you're going to need for HSRB, and then all the different webinars you can look at too. So that's the end of the screencast. If you have any questions about the master's project or the module, please feel free to contact Dr. Lan Lee, the Classroom Tech Master's Degree Program Coordinator, or Dr. Tony Sonnergeld, who is also in charge to help you with data collection. Thank you.